And there is a distinct difference between protection, which you do out of love, you do out of care, you do because you want someone or something to be safe. Someone pointed this distinction out that there's men don't protect, they resource guard. And I was like, I thought that was a fantastic distinction to be made, because women protect. We protect our children. When you think of someone who fiercely protects something, you automatically think of a mother bear, a mama rabbit, a mama a whale, like any mother of any species. When it comes to her children, that is protection. That is, I will lay down my life in order to keep this person safe. That is protection. But men, they resource guard, because the difference between protecting, when you love someone so much you will protect them, you want no harm to come to them from anyone, including yourself. When you are guarding a resource, you don't want anyone else to use or have that resource except for you. And men, they guard women and children so that other men cannot have them, but not so that they can protect them, because if that was the case, then men would be protecting women from themselves. But we know that the highest rates of domestic violence and abuse comes from men to their own partners. We know that the most dangerous time in a woman's life is when she is pregnant or directly postpartum after she just had the baby, and that is the highest time where her intimate partner will commit violence against her and unalive her. We know that the highest cause of death for women who are pregnant or postpartum is their intimate partner. We know that 90% of all violent crimes in the globe across the world are created by men. Men do not protect, they resource guard. And I wanted to make that distinction because that's what they've been doing for the last 12,000 years. For 12,000 years, they've been guarding resources so that other men can't have them because they want them to use them for themselves. And so this is where the start of the patriarchy begins. I know that took me a very long time to get there, but this is how patriarchy began, when men started resource guarding and women could not fight back for whatever reason. That is how the patriarchy came into place. Like, men have the power now, men have the resources, because they really physically took it over in order to guard from other resources. And I can imagine that there were women who, have children, and it is in their best interest to stand behind the man who has the resources, who has access to the resources, in order to protect her children. And that is how children have always, from the beginning of time, really, from the beginning of this agricultural revolution, from the beginning of patriarchy, have been used as a weapon to subjugate women, a weapon to use women, a weapon to contain women, because without children, women are much more free to risk their lives for themselves. They're much more free to stand up against unjust and unfair systems. They're much more free to try to take down patriarchal systems, because they have nothing. You don't it's like when you go into the CIA or something, you cannot become a spy if you have a family. You cannot put your life at risk properly and secretly if you have someone that they can then use against you as leverage, because I will throw my own life down the toilet if I feel like it, but it is much harder for me to throw someone else's life, because that is not, and I feel like that's a big difference between men and women. Is women will do anything, will let anything happen to themselves, domestic abuse, violence, whatever. But then when it comes to their babies, you're not going to hurt my baby. That is where most women will draw the line, which is unlike men, where it's like they're like, nothing will happen to me, but you can take the woman, take the child. Men, when you watch men who are truly afraid and in distress, the last thing on their minds is protection, y'all. They are protecting themselves, but they will throw others into the flames. The amount of videos I've seen, and maybe this is my algorithm, but the amount of videos that I have seen of men hiding behind strollers, hiding behind women whenever they see a dog coming to attack. Or whenever there's some sort of fear, the way that they get behind the women and children versus standing up in front of them. Okay, have I seen some where, the man runs into battle or runs into the fire or whatever? Sure. But those are the minority. Those are the minority of the videos I've seen. Again, my algorithm might be biased. But, I also think about this story I read by, what was her name?
When I was 14, I read the transcript of Fannie Lou Hamer's testimony at the Democratic National Convention in 1964. After reading this transcript for the first time, it changed the course of my life. And maybe by reading it to you today, it will do the same for you. It begins. Mr. Chairman and the Credentials Committee, my name is Miss Fannie Lou Hamer, and I live at 626 East Lafayette Street, Rouville, Mississippi, Sunflower County, the home of Senator James O. Eastland and Senator Stennis. It was the 31st of August in 1962 that 18 of us traveled 26 miles to the county courthouse in Indianola to try to become first-class citizens. We was met in Indianola by Mississippi men, highway patrolmen, and they only allowed 2 of us to take the literacy test at a time. After we had taken the test and started back to Rouville, we was held up by the city police and the state highway patrolmen and carried back to Indianola, where the bus driver was charged that day with driving a bus the wrong color. After we paid the fine amongst us, we continued on to Rouville, and Reverend Jeff Sonny carried me 4 miles in the rural area where I had worked as a timekeeper and a sharecropper for 18 years. I was met there by my children, who told me that the plantation owner was angry because I had gone down to try to register. After they told me, my husband came and said that the plantation owner was raising Cain because I had tried to register. And before he quit talking, the plantation owner came and said, Fannie Lou, do you know? Did Pap tell you what I said? And I said, yes, sir. He said, I meant that. He said, if you don't go down and withdraw your registration, you will have to leave. Then if you go down and withdraw, he said, you might have to go because we are not ready for that in Mississippi. And I addressed him and told him and said, I didn't try to register for you. I tried to register for myself. I had to leave that same night. On the 10th of September 1962, 16 bullets was fired into the home of Mr. and Mrs. Robert Tucker for me. That same night, 2 girls were shot in Rouville, Mississippi. Also, Mr. Joe McDonald's house was shot in. And in June the 9th, 1963, I had attended a voter registration workshop, was returning back to Mississippi. 10 of us was traveling by the Continental Trailway bus. When we got to Winona, Mississippi, which is in Montgomery County, 4 of the people got off the bus to use the washroom, and 2 of the people to use the restaurant. 2 of the people wanted to use the washroom. The 4 people that had gone in to use the restaurant was ordered out. During this time, I was on the bus, but when I looked through the window and saw they had rushed out, I got off the bus to see what had happened. And one of the ladies said it was a state highway patrolman, and a chief of police ordered us out. I got back on the bus, and one of the persons had used the washroom got back on the bus. As soon as I was seated on the bus, I saw when they began to get the 4 people in a highway patrolman's car. I stepped off the bus to see what was happening, and somebody screamed from the car that the 4 workers was in and said, get that one there. And when I went to get in the car, when the man told me I was under arrest, he kicked me. I was carried to the county jail and put in the booking room. They left some of the people in the booking room and began to place us in cells. I was placed in a cell with a young woman called Miss Everesta Simpson. After I was placed in the cell, I began to hear the sound of kicks and horrible screams. And I could hear somebody say, can you say yes? Yes, sir, nigga? Can you say yes, sir? And they would say other horrible names. They would say, yes, I can say yes, sir. So say it. She says, I don't know you well enough. They beat her, and I don't know how long. And after a while, she began to pray and ask God to have mercy on these people. And it wasn't too long before the 3 white men came to my cell. One of these men was a state highway patrolman, and he asked me where I was from. And I told him Rouville. He said, we're going to go check this. And they left my cell. And it wasn't too long before they came back. He said, you are from Rouville, all right. And he used a curse word. And he said, we are going to make you wish you was dead. I was carried out of that cell into another cell where they had 2 Negro prisoners. And the state highway patrolman ordered the first Negro to take the blackjack. The first Negro prisoner ordered me, by orders from the state highway patrolman, for me to lay down on a bunk bed on my face. And I laid on my face. the first Negro began to beat, and I was beat by the first Negro until he was exhausted. And I was holding my hands behind me at the time on my left side because I suffered from polio when I was 6 years old. After the first Negro had beat until he was exhausted, the state highway patrolman ordered the second Negro to take the blackjack. The second Negro began to beat, and I began to work my feet. And the state highway patrolman ordered the first Negro who had beat to sit on my feet to keep me from working my feet. I began to scream, and one white man got up and began to beat me, my head, and told me to hush. One white man, my dress had worked up high, and he walked over and pulled my dress down, and he pulled my dress back up. I was in jail when Medgar Evers was murdered. All this is on account. We want to register to become first-class citizens. And if the Freedom Democratic Party is not seated now, I question America. Is this America, the land of the free and the home of the brave, where we have to sleep with our telephones off the hooks because our lives be threatened daily, because we want to live as decent human beings in America? And that is the end of the transcript. We don't get to sit this one out. We don't get to put our heads in the sand. Our ancestors, they went through things that deserve our respect and our discipline in this moment to fight for the life they didn't get to live. I love you, black man. I love you, black woman. Knowledge is power. Power to the people.
So she comes back from registering her vote. Of course, he then threatened violence, and she, of course, doubled down because 1965-ish, you knew what you were risking. You knew that there would be white narcissistic rage that came after. You knew that these Caucasian people would be angry, jealous. They would feel like they're losing power, and so they're going to do anything they can to get that power back, including violence, because that's their favorite tactic. Then got a black person and gave him the whip, and the black man, instead of saying, then you're going to have to whip us both, which was the right answer, he decided to take the whip and then whip the black woman. And then, of course, the white man came and then whipped her again. So this black woman got 2 whippings while this black man got none, and possibly got rewarded for pandering to white people and whiteness, and laying down his and giving them to a white man. And he was probably rewarded for that. But like that, stories like that, they just show me how weak men can be. Not saying all men are, but there is a significant majority, especially when it comes to like, you see these men have to deal with period cramps whenever the period cramp simulator is used on them. Like the amount of pain that these men are not willing to undergo or withstand in order to fight for their own rights and freedoms, nonetheless another's. It is not something I would depend on. I would not put my life in the hands of a man. I just wouldn't. I have a husband, and I trust him to keep me and my son, and our son secure and like safe. But will I not have myself trained in some sort of hand-to-hand combat? No. Will I not have myself trained in how to use weaponry? No. I would not give up my ability to defend myself. I would never outsource my safety to a man. Really to anyone, but like specifically to a man. If once you outsource your safety to a man, you are more likely, statistically speaking, to become hurt by that same man than you are to be safe at the hands of that man. Just again, I'm speaking statistics. I'm a statistics girly. I love me statistics and probability. I took the class in college. It changed my life on how I see numbers. And so when you just I gamble better. Like when you know statistics, you know what is likely to happen and what is not likely to happen. And I do stocks better. Like when you understand statistics, like what is going to happen statistically speaking, not based on your feelings, not based on your anecdotal experiences, not based on, your mama, your sister, your cousin, which your friend down the street at the barbershop, or the hair salon told you. Like when you know numbers and how they work, you do not leave anything up to faith. And so because I know how numbers work, statistically speaking, I will never outsource my safety to another man, to a man, period.